Hello everyone, welcome back to the Chicago Area Homeopathy Study Group. This is class 6. We did 5 classes last year, and we're going to start up again this year. And what we're going to do today is kind of review a little bit of stuff from last year, kind of get everybody up to speed on the same page, and go over questions and a few other logistical things to talk about today. And then next class, 7 in October, we'll start getting into more of the detailed topics on using homeopathy and continuing to answer your questions. Actually, first of all, how many of you, just by a show of hands, did watch like all of the videos that, all 5 videos that were on the website? Or, yeah, okay, 1. How about any? Did you, how many?
I watched a couple of them.
The first couple?
Yeah.
Okay. Russ, did you get a chance to watch any?
I'm sorry, no.
It's okay.
No.
I answered through my Blackberries. I didn't even know there were videos.
And Dave, did you get a chance to see it? Okay. So, first of all, what I would recommend doing before next class, the more of those you can watch, the better. That is, if you actually just go to my website, progressivechiropractic.com, which is in all this literature here, and then click on services provided, homeopathy, or right at the very top there's a homeopathy link to click on. That'll get you to our homeopathy page, and in there are 5 links to YouTube, which archives all the classes that we did last year. So if you could watch all of them before next time, that would be ideal, but at least like the first 2 or 3 would be great because it gives you an introduction. It kind of goes through a little bit of what we'll talk about today. This handout, Brief Introduction to Homeopathy, it really explains what homeopathy is, how it works, all of the ins and outs, and then each video continues to go into more kind of how it works, generally how to use it, and then we talk about colds and flu treatment, vaccination. We talk about starting to use, we go over some information, which we call materia medica, on the remedies, talking about fever, and we go over 1 case, and that's about where we got last year. So if you can catch up, then we can kind of move forward and really get into using homeopathy and as opposed to just laying the groundwork. So I first got into chiropractic. I had back pain in high school, and I had a less than satisfactory experience with conventional medicine, and which led me on a path of trying to heal myself, which I did very much through chiropractic. And so I created a center that is very much a comprehensive natural or wellness center that it combines chiropractic, acupuncture, massage therapy, therapeutic and rehabilitative exercises, nutritional work. We do all of that stuff. There was a big piece of the practice that was missing for quite a while, and that was the homeopathy part. I found that there were a lot of patients who, most of the patients were getting better, but there was some who, and this was more the chronic pain patients, I found were not, even if we did everything that we could think of, we could do, chiropractic, acupuncture, laser therapy, therapeutic exercises, ultrasound, electrical stim, orthotics exercises, they were still having recurring pain. And I found the commonality that all these patients shared were that they all had other chronic health problems going on at the same time, other chronic diseases. Usually some combination of one of the following, which would be low energy or fatigue, poor sleep, insomnia, headaches, allergies, skin conditions, GI distress. A lot of the kinds of symptoms that people tend to get lumped into categories like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. And what I found is that this is basically all of these symptoms, this persistence of the chronic disease and the symptoms that go with them, is basically the way we look at it in homeopathy is that this is the body's expression of the fact that it's trying to fight something off, it's trying to overcome a problem, but it's unable to. there's a disturbance in the general overall health. There's a global health disturbance or a susceptibility or sensitivity that's preventing them from getting well and staying well. And what the homeopathy does for these patients, which is a lot of people walking around in this country and in the world with chronic disease, is that it triggers the remedy, the homeopathic remedy triggers a healing reaction of the body, and the body is able to rebalance itself and regain health. So that not just the back pain gets better, but the energy gets better, the mood gets better, the anxiety, the depression, the inflammatory conditions, everything tends to get better as a whole with just one single treatment, one single intervention, which is the homeopathic remedy. So that kind of confirms the theory that there is this global disturbance, because by giving just one treatment, one single substance found in nature, which is what the remedies are, an animal substance, a plant substance, a mineral substance, just one single substance is able to trigger a healing reaction through which the person regains health globally or holistically. So really homeopathy, in my experience, is really the most holistic of all treatments, because in any other type of treatment, we're dealing with more often than not one system of the body. In chiropractic, we're dealing with the joints and the muscles, which does affect the nervous system, which does affect the whole body, but it tends not to have as deep or far-reaching effects for disturbances involving the whole person. So I found that using homeopathy for these patients with chronic disease seems to be really the best treatment long-term. It can create an actual cure where the person is no longer suffering and no longer needs further treatment. So that kind of gets into the benefits of homeopathy, and some of you alluded to a few of those. Before we get into that, are any questions so far on kind of just the general sort of background? We haven't really got into too many details yet. Okay. So in terms of the benefits of homeopathy, can you, who would like to just, let's list as many as we can. Benefits of homeopathy, like you could say compared to, can be compared to conventional medicine or just standalone. Anyone?
It's natural.
It's natural, okay. What else?
Holistic.
It's holistic, as we just said, yeah. What else?
It's comprehensive.
It's comprehensive, yeah. What else?
It's not driven by a profit motive.
It's not driven by a profit motive.
Like the way a
To
drug
the degree,
from a pharmaceutical
to the degree to which pharmaceutical industry is. There are the companies that produce the homeopathic remedies. Some of them are fairly large companies, but they're nowhere near in size and scope of the pharmaceuticals. Not even probably 1 percentage point of as big. And the practitioners practicing homeopathy. The practice of homeopathy requires a lot more time spent with each patient, because there's not one remedy for one disease. So even if it's just a simple common cold or a sore throat, that's going to require 10 or 20 or 30 minutes of doctor's time asking the questions that we need to know to prescribe the right remedy. So it's a difficult science to master and to practice and to use effectively, and because of that, because it's so time consuming, it's not as profitable for the individual practitioner, because for the same amount of money you could spend 5 minutes with someone and prescribe prescribe an antibiotic. There's you make a diagnosis, and the diagnosis tells you what medication to prescribe. Whereas in homeopathy, we need to do the diagnosis, but then we also need to figure out, given that diagnosis, what remedy needs to be given in order to make a difference.
I don't know if you want to go too far into the business political side of it, but what's so exciting about that is that so much with genetic research is about identifying specific ways of administering the very right medication to the individual and the very specific makeup of that individual. You're already doing that. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right. Only we're not relying on the latest technology or genetic testing.
Yeah.
What we're doing is probably the biggest single difference between homeopathy and conventional medicine in one word would be individualization. In homeopathy, we're individualizing the treatment to the patient. It doesn't, regardless of diagnosis. So everybody with the same diagnosis or the same disease does not get the same treatment. It's more often than not that if you took 10 people with a sore throat, there'd be 10 different remedies. Sometimes there's exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, the remedy given is individualized. How often the patient has to take the remedy is individualized. What other factors they may need to change in their lifestyle in terms of diet, sleep, exercise may also be individualized. So all of the recommendations we make across the board are individualized.